All right, I'm back. Daf Yomi for the week, sponsored by Shmuley and Miriam Fuchs. Le'ilui Nishmas Shmuley's father, Yitzchak David ben Moshe Eliezer, Zechron Levracha, whose yortzeit is on Tainus Esther coming up. And we are in the middle of a conversation, a little Bishlama Rabbi Nechemia, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from where they get thin, from where they get fat, so the thin lines, Bishlama. So Bishlama Rabbi Nechemia, after we had this conversation about what the source of the concept of capturing somebody and holding them in prison until we find out what the circumstance is. Right. Rabbi Nechemia and the Chachamim were having a dispute. And the essential point of the dispute was the circumstance when somebody hits somebody in a way that originally they think is fatal, but then the person gets better and then he dies. Right? Is that circumstance considered to be a fatal case and the person's a murderer?
That would not be your fault.
Well, I mean, you're the murderer. You did hit him. It is your fault.
No, but
right?
But he was a kid then.
The question is whether he's going to be a damager or a murderer, right? It's your fault, but you're
I would say more of a damager.
So that's the question. So Bishlama Rabbi Nechemia. So according to Rabbi Nechemia, Hainu Ksivi Trei Umdini. I understand why the Torah in the pasuk has two different psukim, two different sections, which talk about the concept of evaluating, because there's two different circumstances when a person could hit somebody, and then they can be evaluated and only have to pay rather than be considered a murderer. Chad, the first case is Amduhu Lemisa V'chaya, where Beis Din makes originally the declaration they think that he's going to die, that the person who he hit is going to die, but then he lives. So in that circumstance, you have to evaluate him and you're going to decide what his real value is going to pay the damages. V'chad Umduhu Lemisa V'hakam Mimoshe Haya, and then the second case is the case that there's the dispute on, which is where they evaluate him, they think he's going to die, and then he gets better, and that's a case according to Nechemia, he's only liable for money, and then he dies. But you're not liable for the death because he got better in between. That's how Rabbi Nechemia holds. El Rabbanan, but according to Rabbanan, Trei Umdini Lamali. I don't need two cases of evaluation because according to the Rabbanan, that second circumstance of evaluation, he's dead at the end, so therefore he's going to be considered a murderer. So
maybe he could have had a heart disease as well.
Well, if they decide that whatever he dies from is completely unrelated, that for sure is not an argument, right? They're going to decide ultimately that the wound got better, but then it got worse again. Right, so it got infected. I don't know. He was getting better, but then it got worse again. So Chad Amduhu Lemisa V'chaya. So the first case of evaluation is when they evaluate him that he's going to die, but then he lives. V'chad, and the other circumstance of the evaluation is Amduhu L'chayim V'meis, that when Beis Din said that he's going to live, but then he dies. In that circumstance, it's Beis Din originally evaluated him as being able to live. You can't say that the blow that he hit him with was a death blow, even though eventually he dies. That's the circumstance he's going to pay. Reb Nechemia Amdu L'chayim V'meis Lo Tzarich Kra. Reb Nechemia says, I don't need a pasuk for that circumstance. Why don't I need a pasuk for that circumstance? Where he was evaluated originally for life and then he dies is because Shari Yotzami Beis Din Zakai. Because once Beis Din evaluates and determines that the blow that you hit the guy with was a blow that doesn't kill, now you're already off the case. The case is already done, right? I don't need a special pasuk when the case is already finished. So then you can't go back and try him for murder once you've already acquitted him. The Chachamim say no. The original evaluation is not really a court case per se. So it's not a circumstance where he's been in Beis Din and he's been evaluated as somebody who's alive. Therefore, the pasuk has to tell me that once they evaluate him for life, then he doesn't go back and is considered to be a person who died. Okay, Tanar Rabbanim, a rabbi's word. Hamakes chaveru, somebody who hits his friend, v'amdu lemisa. Now, this is the summary dispute, right? This Bryce is going to be a summary of what we just discussed between Rabbi Nechemia and the Chachamim. So, somebody hits his friend, v'amdu lemisa, and they evaluate that he's going to die, v'chaya, but then he lives, potrinoso. Then, the person is off the hook. Okay? The guy didn't die, so he's not chayav misa. Amdu lemisa, now, if they evaluate that he's going to die, then he gets better and then he gets worse again. So omdinoso. So now we're going to evaluate him. Omid Sheni, a second time, lemamon, as far as determining what his value was. Now, if he got better, right? First he was sick, then he got better. then he got worse again. If afterwards then gets worse again and he dies, halach achar umad ha'imtzi, the Divrei Rabbi Nechemia. Rabbi Nechemia says, once you did that middle evaluation to determine that he was going to live, then that's the final case, right? Basically, that's the same. Like he holds, once Beis Din evaluates and says the guy's going to live, that potters you from being a murderer. You cannot go back and be considered a murderer again. That's how Rabbi Nechemia learns. The Chacham say no. Ein omad achar omad. Once you have already established, the Beis Din established that they considered the wound to be one that can lead to a death, then the second evaluation where they decided that he could live is not a second evaluation. That second evaluation does not replace the first evaluation, so that if the person does in fact die, the initial evaluation that the Rabbanan did to establish that it was a death blow is still in place. And since you evaluated that it was a death blow, and in fact the guy died, then he's chayav misa. That's one brisa. Tanya idach, there's another brisa, and it goes like this. Amdu l'misa, let's say they evaluated and they saw this person got hit and he evaluated and they think he's going to die. Omdino so l'chayim. So then, or they evaluate him for life. L'chayin in omdino so l'misa. So then, once they evaluate him for life, then you cannot reevaluate him for death. Right? But can't go the other way. Can't make him a circumstance they make life and then death. Amdu lemisa, but if they evaluated him originally for death, v'hakam mimosha haya, and then he becomes better than he was. Omdenoso omad sheni, then we do a second evaluation. Lemamon, as far as just determining what the value of the damages would be. And if after that, hichbid vames, he gets worse and dies, mishalim nezek v'tzar liyorshim, then he's got to pay the monetary damages that were to the heirs. Now, me'emasai mishalim, now since you're doing this evaluation, later on, remember the original evaluation, they said we don't have to bother evaluating the nature of these injuries because he's going to die. But then a couple weeks go by and he's getting better, then they evaluate him. Now, what point do you do the evaluation? Is the point at which they did the second evaluation for monetary value? That's, we determine what the nature of the injuries are at that point? No. Mishal shehiko. You have to go back to what the injuries were originally. Right? You got to go, the original injuries were much worse, obviously, than they are now, because now he's going to live. So therefore, the value of the damages is based on the original injury. Now, Ustama, Rabbi Nechemia, this brisa doesn't say who it is, but it follows Rabbi Nechemia's opinion, right? Again, that you start off saying that he was going to live, that he's going to die, then he's going to live, and then he dies. We're going to consider it monetary damages, not a murder. Right. Next. Says the Mishnah, Niskavin la rogas ha-behema v'harages ha'adam. Person wanted to kill an animal and he accidentally kills a person. La'ove kochavim, he wanted to kill a non-Jew v'harages Yisrael and he kills a Jew. L'nefilim v'harag ben kayama. He wanted to kill a stillborn, right? I guess a child that was born but was unlikely to be able, wasn't going to be able to make it, right?
He's putter still.
So then he accidentally killed a living child. He's putter, as Yehuda expects. Why? What's your expectation? Because you have to have some kind of intent to commit the crime. If the crime that you committed is not the crime that you intended, and in fact the crime that you intended isn't a misa crime, you wouldn't be chayav misa for killing somebody, for killing an animal, right?
Well, it's like you killed a Jew in the end.
So the fact that you killed a Jew in the end is not good, but you didn't intend to do that. That was sort of accidental. And so therefore, since you intended to kill a non-Jew, you accidentally killed a Jew, you are putter.
Okay, because you still had the intention to kill someone, and then you killed the young...
Correct. So you're still going to be chayav for the damages, but not as a murderer. You have to have intention to be a murderer, and then murder in order to be a murderer. Niskavin lahakoso al masnov. Now, let's say he intended to hit him in his... I think a masnav. What is that? How does it translate? His haunches, his loins. I was going to say, it's like, the meaty part of his body, right? Right against the thigh, the leg, the backside, somewhere around there. I think not. I think that masnav is like the posterior, right? Something like the thigh, something like that. I think masnav is basically, it's a meatier part of the body. It can take a blow. Right? Loins.
On his loin.
Right. I don't know what loins are.
The blow was...
Now, because he's striking him in a place where he could take a lot more damage, that blow does not have enough in it in order to cause death. al masnav, if he hits him on masnav, we'll just say masnav, whatever that means, v'halcha lo al libo, and he intended to hit him b'masnav, but he accidentally hit him in the heart. Now that's going to be a much less defended part of the body, so it's going to take less to kill him. And the blow, there was enough force to kill him by hitting him in the chest, so then he dies, he's putter. Why? Because the blow that he intended in the location that he intended shouldn't have killed him. The fact that he missed and he hit him in the other place is why, and therefore he's not chayav. Niskave lakos olibo. But if the other way, right? Let's say he intended to hit him in the chest. V'haya ayin tasaman aleph. V'haya bakadei lahami salibo. And because he was intending there, he intended to kill him by hitting him on the chest. V'hachalo al masnav. But he hit him in a much more padded part of his body. V'lo haya bakadei lahamis al masnav. The blow was not significant enough to kill him at that part of the body. Umeis, but the guy dies anyway. Now he's putter. He's exempt. Why is he exempt? He intended to kill and he did kill. The answer is because the blow was not a killing blow. So you need two things. You need the intention to kill and you need a killing blow. This is not a killing blow because a blow to the masnayim, to his loins, is not going to kill him.
You can blow in the face and then keep getting punched.
So if you hit him in a place like the throat or the chest, so that's going to be a place that is easier to kill, right? So that's going to be a different story. Niskavin lahakos es agodol. Let's say he intended to kill an adult, to hit an adult. But he doesn't have enough force in his swing to kill the adult. But he accidentally hits a child. Now the blow is significant enough to kill the child. Umeis, and now the child dies, he's potter. Right? Because again, the intention wasn't to kill, so he's not chayev. Niskavin lahakos is a koton if he intends to kill a child. Is a koton, and the blow is only sufficient enough to kill a child. But then he accidentally hits an adult. But the blow shouldn't have been able to kill the adult. So, because the adult is larger, umeis, but he dies anyway. Potter, he's exempt because that's not a killing blow. Right? The blow to this adult shouldn't have killed him. So therefore it's not a killing blow. Aval, however, niskavin lakos al masnav, vayabakadei lahamis al masnav. Let's say he intended to hit somebody in the loins, and he had enough of a strength there to do it, and to kill the person that way. And he hits him in the heart, umeis, now he's chayev. Why? Killing blow plus intention, and now he's chayev, even though it didn't happen the way he anticipated it. Niskavin lahakos es agodol, and the next case too, if he wanted to intend to strike the adult, v'haya ba kedei lahamis es agodol, and it was in fact forcible enough to kill an adult, v'achalal katan, and instead he hit a child, umeis, and the child dies, chayev, again, intention to commit murder, and enough of a force to commit murder. Rabbi Shimon Omer, this is what Brian was always bothered by, right? I wanted to hit one guy, I killed the other guy, I shouldn't be liable. That's Rabbi Shimon's opinion. Afilu niskavin larog es zeh, v'hareg es zeh, potter. Rabbi Shimon holds that even if you wanted to kill one guy and you killed the other guy, you're still not chayev, because you didn't do what you intended to do. Okay, or explain why he says that. Now, the first question the Gemara wants to know is, Reb Shimon Aheya, what is Reb Shimon arguing on? Right? What's the point? Where's Reb Shimon arguing? Is he jumping into this Mishnah? Ilema Seifa. If you're going to say, well, just read the Mishnah straight through, right? We had all of these situations back and forth. I intended to hit in this place. I hit in this place. I did this one. So now Reb Shimon jumps in at the end and he says, I wanted to kill this one and I killed the other one. He's potter. So that means that Reb Shimon poter mi ba'ilei. Reb Shimon, it should have said that Reb Shimon exempts, right? It shouldn't say patur, it should say he poter. He exempts him in that circumstance, not the guy is exempt, right? Because that's the way that phrase is going there. Ella aresha. So rather, we're going to put Reb Shimon on the beginning, right? Which is where he says, Niskavin la roges abehema v'harages hadam. Back at the beginning of the Mishnah, we started off and said, if somebody wanted to kill an animal and he killed a person, la'ove kochavim v'harages Yisrael, he wanted to kill a non-Jew and he kills the Jew.
But he's still liable.
What do you mean by liable?
I mean, he's
in this case, Vaharag as ben Kayam, the feeling Vaharag as ben Kayam, he wanted to kill a dead body and he kills a child who's alive, that he's putter, then he's exempt. Why? Because the object of what he was attacking is not a murder case. So, Hanis Kavin Laharog as Zev, Vaharag as Zechayev, which would imply that if in fact the case was, and this I think what you're saying is, that if he was intending to kill this adult man, and he killed this adult man, you would be chayev. The only reason you're not chayev is because you wanted to kill an animal, and you killed a man. Or you wanted to kill a non-Jew, and you killed a Jew. But if you wanted to kill a regular human being, and you killed a Jewish human being, you'd be chayev. To which Reb Shimon says, at that point in the Mishnah, afilu niskaven l'rogazeh v'haragazeh pater. Even if you wanted to kill one person, you killed a different person, you would still be exempt. That's where he's coming on. Now, I was bothered by this. What difference does it make practically in the end, whether he's arguing in the beginning or the end? The answer is, if you look through all of the cases, one of the cases is that when he hits, we said that the circumstance where he hits somebody on his masnav and then he accidentally hits him in the lave instead, right? So we said in that circumstance he'd be chayiv, and there Rabbi Shimon might be saying no pater. Because if you put him at the end, he's arguing with all the cases that the previous opinion said chayiv, pater, and said chayiv, he'd be saying pater. The thing is, why should he be pater in that case?
If you killed a person. You
actually killed the person you intended to kill. Mm-hmm. You went to kill him, hit him here, you hit him there. Rabbi Shimon does not disagree with that case. He agrees that that case is chayiv. By putting Rabbi Shimon on the beginning of the Mishnah, he's just disagreeing with the general idea that if you try to hit one person, you hit another person, you are chayiv. He says, no, that's pater. But he doesn't disagree with the statement the Mishnah makes later on, that if you intended to hit Joe in this part of your body and kill him, but you accidentally hit him someplace else and killed him, you are chayiv. He's not saying you're pater in that case. Mm-hmm. Okay. Pshita. So now, it's clear and obvious. Kai Ruvain v'Shimon, right? So let's say there's Ruvain and Shimon. V'Amar, and he says, Ana l'Ruvain kam michavna. The guy who's the murderer says, I'm going to shoot Ruvain. Okay? L'Shimon lo kam michavna. But I don't want to kill Shimon. I like Shimon. Hainu pluksayu. That's clearly the point of argument between Rabbi Shimon and the Chachamim. Right? That's where the Chum say, well, it doesn't matter. You intended to kill somebody, you killed another somebody, you're chayiv. Rabbi Shimon says, no, you clearly intended to kill, you wanted to kill Ruvain, but not Shimon, you're not chayiv. Amar lechad minayhu. But what if the guy said, I want to kill one of those guys? So my.
What if Shimon jumps in front of the ball to save Ruvain?
So that's exactly our case, right? Then he kills the wrong guy, right? Then he would not necessarily be chayiv, right? So that's our case. But what if he says, the murderer says, right? I'm gonna kill whoever this hits. So what's the circumstance according to Rabbi Shimon, right? So in the end, right? He intended to kill one of the people. He killed one person, but he didn't really. Or do we say, since he didn't have intention to a person and just threw it in the middle, he's not chayiv because he didn't intend to kill any particular person. So inami kasava Ruvain. Or also, what about the circumstance like this? He thought it's Ruvain. He looked. He saw it was dark out. He says, I think that he thinks that's Ruvain. V'nimtzo Shimon. And then it turns out it's Shimon. So what happens in that case? He killed the guy he was aiming for. But he was only aiming for him because he thought he was somebody else. Don't jump. We didn't say that yet. We said we don't know. So what's the halacha there? Okay. So Toshma. So let's come and look at a brisa here. Tanya. Rabbi Shimon says, Ad sheyomar liploni ani miskavein. The only time that you are exempt is when he says specifically, I am intending to kill Ruvain. Right, my time of the Rabbi Shimon. So therefore, it has to be he has to intend to kill Ruvain and kill Ruvain. So both of those cases, as Yehuda says, he would agree with the Chachamim and say you are chayiv. Right, you intended to you killed somebody you intended to kill in those other cases. Mm-hmm. Okay, my time of the Rabbi Shimon. What is the reason why Rabbi Shimon holds what he holds? Amar Kra, the pasuk says, va'arev lo v'kama lov. Va'arev lo means that he is ambushing him. He schemes upon him and he ambushes him and he jumps on him, which means ad she'chavin lo. That means that he has to have some kind of intention, right? I think that the word in English is manslaughter versus murder, right? If you just happen to kill somebody, that's not the same thing as murdering somebody.
Right.
The Rabbanan Amri Debei Rabbi Yanai, and so the Rabbanan, how do they explain this pasuk? And the Yeshiva Rabbi Yanai explain Prat lezorek even legav. So that exempts somebody who just throws a rock into a crowd. He's not intending to kill any particular person at all. Then he's exempt, right? Because there was no specific murder intention at all. So heichi dummy. So what's the case? How do you mean you throw it into a crowd? Don't you intend to kill somebody? I mean, let's say the crowd is 9 non-Jews, ve'echad Yisrael, and 1 Jewish person, beinehem. So then he kills the 1 Jew. So tepuklei deruba kusim ninu. So he should be exempt. Why? Because most of the people there were non-Jews. So therefore, the rove circumstance, if I just threw to kill somebody in the crowd, would have been intending to kill a non-Jew.
But he killed a Jew.
Right, but you can't say that was intention because the rove is not like that. Right? You have to presume that what he was intending to do is to attack that group, and that group is mostly non-Jews. Hence, he wasn't attacking a Jew. Therefore, he shouldn't be chayav. Inami, or else, palgo. Maybe you're going to say the case is 5 Jews, 5 non-Jews. Maybe that's the case. Well, that's not going to help you because suffik nefashos lahakel. Because we always know that we're going to go leniently when it comes to capital cases. We're going to always let the guy off. It's 50-50. So then you're right. There's no rove, but you can't hold him liable based on a majority on an even 50-50 basis, right? So lo tzricha dikatisha Yisrael v'kuti echad beinehen. Really, what's going on here is there's 9 Jews and 1 non-Jew. Dahavale kusi kavua. So what happens is if there's 9 Jews and 1 non-Jew, so then you might think that he's intending to kill a Jew because that's the rove. However, the pasuk is telling us that is not true. Even though there's 9 Jews and 1 non-Jew, is not considered the rove. Why? Because it's kusi kavua. The kusi is stationary. In this circumstance, the kusi is there and he's in place. V'kol kavua kemechza mechza dami. Anything that's stationary and in place is considered 50-50. This is a concept that I wish I could be able to understand and explain logically. Sometimes I think I can sort of understand it, sometimes I can't. But essentially, the way I figure it is like this, and this is my own made-up explanation for it. When you have a group of items all mixed together, and then you go by the rove, because the one item that you're going to pull out of this group, something that's coming out of the group, is likely to be whatever the majority is. You don't know what you're pulling. I have, a bag of poker chips, and 9 of them are blue, and 1 is red. I'm going to pull 1 out of the group. It's likely that I'm going to pull out a blue. That's what rove means. However, when all of the poker chips are in the bag, right? Every one that I put my finger on can either be red or blue. Those are the 2 choices, probability-wise. Which means I put my finger on this one, it could be a blue one or a red one. This one is either a blue one or a red one. Every one in its location is 50-50. Right. And you pull still strange, but the bottom line is every time you think of probability, right? You think of probability in the sense of pulling something out. What's the likelihood you can pull it out? That's not how kavua looks. Kavua looks at when I'm going to flip a coin, what are the chances that it's going to be heads or tails? I'm going to take a look at this item. And so therefore, every single this person is either a Jew or a non-Jew. Since this non-Jew is sitting in the group, you're not pulling a person out of this group. Since he's in the group and he's set and stationary in the group, any person is 50-50, and this is the source of that halacha. Therefore, it tells us, even if you threw a rock into a group of 9 Jews and 1 non-Jew, and you kill a Jew, you're not liable. Why? Because kol kavua mechza mechza dami. That's the way I understand kavua mechza mechza. Bishlam al rabbanan. Okay, so fine. I understand the Rabbanan's point of view. According to them, they say, you wanted to kill Reuven, you accidentally killed Shimon, you are liable. You need chayav. Why does that make sense? The pasuk says. Pasuk says right away. Right? The 2 men of the source pasuk is 2 men are fighting. One's trying to punch another person. He misses. He hits the lady. Right? And if the lady miscarries, then there's a financial penalty. But if the lady dies, he's chayav misa. Now,
if she dies and miscarries at the same time,
it's then kamli b'derabbi. We always said, right, the more significant punishment. Okay, so the Amar Rabbi Elazar. So the Rabbi Elazar says, "B'mitzvah shebemisa hakasa medaber dichsiv." Right, this pasuk is telling us the circumstance. B'mitzvah shebemisa hakasa medaber. right? B'matzus shebemisa. That's I read it wrong. B'matzus shebemisa. They're fighting to the death. That's the circumstance of this pasuk. How do we know that? Because pasuk says, "Im ason yiyeh v'nasata nefesh tachas nefesh." That if he, in fact, goes to attack and kill another person, so then he's going to have his soul taken in the place of the other soul that he tried to kill. So therefore, he's intending to kill, right? But now he misses. He killed the other person. So clearly this proves the Rabbanan's point. He wanted to kill one guy, he killed the lady, now he's chayev. Elo Rabbi Shimon. But according to Rabbi Shimon, how does he explain this pasuk that says the guy's going to give his life for the life that he took? So the answer is mamon. It's a financial penalty. Nefesh tachas nefesh doesn't literally mean that he gives his life for the life he killed. It just means he has to pay financial damage. Right. Well, it's more than knas. It's a nezikin. It's a damage, right? He killed this lady. Now he has to pay the value of her.
Like in the pasuk, like shein tachas shein.
That's exactly it. Ayin tachas ayin. That's exactly what it's like. Ayin tachas ayin. The Rabbi, like Rabbi says to Tanya, we're in our brisa. Rabbi Omer v'nasat nefesh tachas nefesh. Rabbi says you're going to pay a soul for the soul. That's mamon. That's only a financial penalty, not literally. Ata Omer mamon. You say it means financial. Oh, eno ela nefesh mamish, or maybe it means literally. You kill the person. Nemar nesina lamata v'nemar nesina. It says, the way that I know that it means to actually pay money is because I'm going to look at the word nesina. It's nefesh tachas nefesh. He's going to pay a soul for a soul. Well, what's he paying? Well, malahalan mamon afkan mamon. Just like the pasuk is talking about, if he hits the fetus and the fetus dies, he has to pay money. So too, the nefesh that he's paying when he kills the woman is also money. That's how Rabbi learns it, which agrees with Rabbi Shimon's point of view. Amar Rava, Haina Tana de Bechizkiah. This brisa we learned in Yeshiva Kiska. Mafka mida Rabbi umafka mida Rabbanan. So this brisa that was taught in the Yeshiva Kiska does not follow Rabbi's point of view, and it doesn't follow the Rabbanan's point of view. We're going to see it. The Brisa in Yeshiva Chizkiah is a new perspective. Make Adam, right? The way that we've learned it so far is there's two choices. Either a person wants to kill one person, he hits the other person, he's going to pay money, or if he wants to kill one person, he kills the other person, he has to pay with his life. Those are our two choices. Here comes option number 3 in this Brisa. Make Adam umake behema. Pasuk says that a person who kills a person, and then it talks about in the same pasuk or in the same area, make behema yishalmenu, make adam yumas. Pasuk says somebody who kills an animal has to pay. Somebody who kills a person will die. Why is the pasuk putting these two things of killing a person, killing an animal together? Ma make behema lo chalakta ben shogig lemezid ben miskavin l'sheinu miskavin ben derech yerida l'derech aliyah. Look, if you damage, rule of damages is, it doesn't matter what your intentions are. A person, we have the concept of adam muad li olam. A person always has to be aware of his surroundings, always is responsible. It doesn't matter. You can't say, I'm not liable to the damages because I did it by accident. I walk by and I knock over your coffee and it spills all over you and now I'm chayav for the dry cleaning. You can't, I didn't mean it. You're always responsible for yourself. It doesn't matter you do it on purpose, accidentally, negligent, all those terms.
The problem is you should have left your coffee by the edge.
Not a problem, because if you're the one who knocked it over, then you're responsible. It's not my responsibility, right? It does not matter, right? Now, lepotra. Now, and in all of those circumstances, lepotra mamon el lechayvo mamon. In all of these cases, there's no circumstance where you cause a damage where you are exempt from payment. You're going to be achayev for payment. Af make adam. So too, when a person gets killed, lo tachlok bo ben shogig lemezid ben miskavin l'shein miskavin. There's no difference whether you do it through negligence or on purpose. There's no difference whether you did it intentionally or unintentionally. Ben derech yerida l'derech aliyah. It doesn't matter whether you are going downward strokes or upward strokes. Lechayvo mamon. You're not going to say that in any of those circumstances you ever have to pay. El lepotro. You are always exempt from payment. You're going to be chayav whatever punishment that you're going to be liable for. Like if you're doing it shogeg, you're going to go to the iramiklat, or you might be chayav misa, but you're never chayav money instead of when you kill somebody. So now, my she'ein miskavin. One of these cases is you didn't mean it, right? Whether you meant it or you didn't mean it. Now, what does that mean? If you mean that he didn't mean to kill the person at all, so hainu shogeg. That's what shogeg was. And we already said, it doesn't matter whether you're mazid or shogeg, we already had that part. So that's not what it means. So that would be redundant. Ella pshita, it's clear, she'ein miskavin lazeh el lazeh. You didn't mean it means, I didn't mean to kill him. I meant to kill him, right? I meant to kill Ruvain, I actually killed Shimon. That's what that means. V'katani l'chayvo mamon, and it says, I might think that I'm obligated to pay money, el potro mamon. Rather, right, it's going to say, doesn't matter, you're always exempt from payment. Now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi, we said he is liable to pay money in such a case. According to the Chamim, right? So v'ibar katalahu ma'isrich limifterei mamon. Now, if, however, even more so, according to the Rabbanan, you'd be chayav misa in that case. Why do I need a brisa to tell me the pasuk is telling me that I'm not obligated to pay? I don't need a pasuk. We have something called kamle b'derabimine. He's chayav misa. You killed a person. You intended to kill Reuven. You killed Shimon. According to Rabbanan, you're chayav for that. So that means you're chayav misa. If you're chayav misa, of course you don't have to pay. El lav shmamino lav bar katolihu. So it means that according to the opinion who taught this brisa, such a person is not going to be killed, right? And not only that, doesn't follow Rebbe either, who would hold that you have to pay damages for lav bar mamono, who you're not liable to pay the money either. So this must be a new view that says you're not chayav misa and you're not chayav mamon. You're not chayav anything. Says the next Mishnah. Rotseach she nisarev be'achirim. This is a weird case, right? And the Gemara is going to discuss it. Murderer gets mixed up with all of the other people.
What does that mean?
Right. How do you mix up your murderer? Okay? Yeah. You mixed up your murderer. Kulan Paturin, now you can't kill any of them. Can't kill anybody in that group. Okay?
Is this like a temporary chayav misa situation?
No. We'll see what the case is. Right? And give it away. Just pointing out, it's very difficult to understand what it's talking about.
Yeah.
Huh? Right?
Triplets.
Right. It's like the shell game at the baseball game, right? Where they put the hat on and it moves around. I mixed them up. I lost him somewhere. Rabbi Yehuda says, Konsen oson lekipa. What we do is we put him into the jail. And jail was not a pleasant experience. They put you in jail, they feed you barley, and then you drink some water, and your stomach explodes and you die.
Lovely. Wow.
Right. So you were in fact actively killing them, but you are causing their death.
Beautiful.
Right, exactly, like a grumma, exactly. Let's say you have ones who are obligated to death sentence and they get mixed together, ninodim bekala. Then, now you don't know which misa to give them. Right? So you're going to give them the most lenient misa possible. Haniskolin ben Israfim. If you're going to mix up people who get skila together with the people who get sreifa, so Rabbi Shimon Omer nidon beskila. You're going to give them skila. Why? Shas sreifa chamura. Because Rabbi Shimon holds, as we've heard before, he holds sreifa as the more strict one. V'chamim Omer, the Chum would disagree. Nidon b'sreifa. You give them sreifa. Why? Shas skila chamura. Because skila is the more strict one. Amar than Rabbi Shimon says, Ilu lo haisa sreifa chamura. What are you talking about? Sreifa has to be the more strict one. Lo nisnu lebas kohen shazinsa. Why would this bas kohen get everybody else who commits adultery gets skila, but the bas kohen who commits adultery, she gets sreifa? Sounds like you're elevating it to a higher level, which we've discussed. We discussed all this in the past. Amrulo, they said to him, "Lo haisa skila chamura." If skila wasn't the most severe, lo nitno lemeganif lo v'kocham. Look at the people who get this who get this misa. They're the people who commit avodah zarah. The people who are blaspheming against Hashem's name. These are the people who are the worst, and they get skila. So. Hanerogin bechenkin. Let's say I mixed up people who are supposed to get hereg and chenek. So Reb Shimon Omer b'sayif. Reb Shimon says sayif. That's the more lenient of the two. V'cham Omer bechenek. And the Chachamim say chenek is the more lenient of the two, and that's why you give them all chenek.
How is decapitating someone more lenient if you just cut off the head?
Seems like it's quicker, faster, simpler.
That's less painful.
That's their opinion. I wouldn't tell you because who you going to ask, right? But that's the argument that we've had in the past. Says the Gemara, Man achirim. Who are these others? You mix a murderer up with others. Who's others? Achirim ksherim. You mix them up with other innocent people. You got a murderer, and he jumps into a group of innocent people.
He blends into a crowd, basically.
Right.
Okay.
Now you've got them all there. You've got the crowd, right? You say, "Are you the murderer? Are you the murderer?" Everybody's like, "No, not me, not me."
The question is, did he change his clothing or did he just blend in?
Maybe everyone was wearing similar things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So pshita. So then the mission is obvious. Obviously, you can't kill innocent people, right? You can't do anything. V'tu. But furthermore, Bahal Lema Rabbi Yehuda konsonoson lekipa. But 1 second. That's where Rabbi Yehuda is going to say, if that's the case, Rabbi Yehuda is going to say, take all those guys to jail, feed them and have them all die. All the innocent people get died, right? Because the one guilty guy, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
So that's not the case. Amar Rabbi Avo, Amar Shmuel. So Rabbi Avo says in Shmuel, Hacha, here the case is Brotech Shelo Nigmar Dino. What happened is, you had a murderer. They had a whole trial. Clearly the guy's Chayev, Misa. Okay? But before Beis Din comes to pronounce it, he runs off. And now he's in a group of people and we can't recognize who he is. And he runs into the group of all the other guys that are Chayev Misa, because they're already convicted murderers.
Can you just throw a grenade, kill them all?
So, now you understand why Rabbi Yehuda says kill them all, right? Right? They're all Chayev, they're all murderers. But one guy didn't get his pronouncement in Beis Din to be killed.
We're talking about like a prison where...
Must be.
Right?
It's, by the way, the whole case is very weird because we learned that if we didn't learn yet, but the Beis Din would not murder a lot of people. Right. Somehow they had this whole pen full of people who they're about to put to death somehow, right? And they were supposed to do it immediately, but somehow they had this whole group of people here, and he runs off and comes into this. So it's theoretical.
Basically, it was like gen pop of people who are Chayev Misa.
Yeah.
So Rabbanan Savri. So Rabbanan Holy, Ein Gomrin Dino Shel Odam Ella Bifanov. They say, first of all, why don't you just, tell and pronounce whoever you are in there, you're Chayev Misa, and they kill everybody. Can't do that. Why? Because the requirement in order to pronounce somebody Chayev Misa is you have to pull that person out, put him in front of Beis Din, and Beis Din has to recognize the person and say, you are Chayev Misa. They can't because they don't recognize the guy.
How about fingerprints?
Wonder whether fingerprints might be a way of identifying the person. It's a good question. You have to have witnesses to be able to identify. So theoretically, the question is whether whether fingerprints could be witnessed or something. It'll be complicated, right? Hilkach, therefore, kul and paturin. Therefore, the Chamzak can't put the rest of them to death because one guy in here is not Chayev Misa. For Rabbi Yehuda, miftarinhu legamri namilo. You can't let them all off the hook. Kevin derotzcheninhu. These are all murderers. What are you supposed to do? Let them all out in the street? You can't let a whole group of murderers out. Hilkach konsonos lekipa. Therefore, we're going to put them into jail and we're going to let them die. Right? So we're going to have some method of preventing them to go out on the streets. They're Chayev Misa, but you can't kill them.
Whether it's stabbing or just giving them barley.
Give them barley. Let them explode. Says Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish Shamar. He says, no, I'll give you a different explanation. He says, Be'adam. He says, look, if it's a human being, then you're right. They got to let them all off the hook. Sorry, it's murderers, but the guy's innocent. One guy's innocent. Can't kill an innocent person, even if it means freeing other guilty people. But here's what we're dealing is bishur shalom nigmar dino. We're talking about oxen, right? Just says a murderer doesn't tell you it's a murderous person. It's an ox that gored a person and killed a person. So the ox is supposed to be put to death. So now this ox runs off and gets mixed together with other oxen. The ox was not pronounced guilty, but the other oxen that it runs into were pronounced guilty. So Rabbanan Savri, Kamisas Baalim, Kachmisas Ashur. The Rabbanan hold that the rules applying to when you can apply the death penalty for the ox are the same as how it would work by the owner. Why? Because when the pasuk talks about the killing the ox, it says the owner shall die. But the owner doesn't die. So the reason what we derive from that pasuk is that the ox is killed in the way that the owner would die. So all the rules, meaning 23 judges, all those things that we learned, that's how you have to apply it to the case for the ox also. This too, just as if it was a person, you couldn't kill the innocent oxen over the person. You can't kill this ox without pronouncing it guilty in front of Beis Din. So too, this ox can't get killed. You need to be able to have the ox present in court in order to pronounce it the death sentence. Therefore, Hilkach, Kul and Petur, and therefore they're all exempt. Rabbi Yehuda says, Konsonosa ason lekipa. You're going to put them into the pen, you're going to feed them and let them all die. Okay, it seems a little bit like a nicer explanation, right? Amar Rava, Peyam and Aleph. Rava says, if that's true, so then if that is the case, that's what we're talking about oxen. So then let's take a look at the following brisa. Amar Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said, "Filu abba chalafta beinehen." Rabbi Yossi said on this case about one person running away. So then, does that mean even if my father chalafta was amongst the group? Well, wait a second. If you're talking about oxen, how would he talk about his father in the group, right? Because his point is, he's astonished that Rabbi Yehuda is going to kill all of these murderers, and he would say, even if my father Chalafta was in the group, you'd kill all of them just because of this one guy? Now, still winds up being a problem, according to all the explanations we've had up until this point, because why is he talking about his father Chalafta, when his father Chalafta would seem to have been a tzaddik? He's not a murderer, so according to the opinion that we said that he was running into a group of murderers, you also have a problem. So, Ella Amar Rava, so Rava says, here's a different explanation. Hachi Kamar, Shnaim Shayu Omdin, okay, there were two guys. This is what the case that Rabbi Yossi was talking about. Not the case of our Mishnah, but there were two guys standing next to each other. V'yotza chetz mi beinehem, and an arrow flies out from the general direction of these two individuals. We don't know who fired the arrow, right? They all look at who shot that, and they both point to each other, right? So now, right, v'harag, and he kills somebody. Shnehem p'turim. Both of the fellows are exempt. V'ram Rabbi Yossi then said, afilu abba chalafta beinehan. Even if one of them is my father chalafta, because he was such a tzaddik, you would presume he can't have been the one who fired the arrow. It must be the other guy's guilty. Nevertheless, you cannot presume based on the quality of one of them's character that the other guy is guilty. Now, if you've got an ox, right, that is certified that it's supposed to die, and it mixes up with other oxen that are fine, that are not liable for misa, soklin osan, then you're going to give them skila. Then you're going to kill all of them with skila. That's what the Chachamim say. Right? You're not going to save one ox, right? You're going to kill all of the oxen. Because why? Because according to him, the mitzvah of killing the ox with skila outweighs any problem of killing an innocent ox. Okay? Despite...
I guess you're removing danger.
Correct, yes. And also it's a mitzvah, a positive mitzvah here to kill the ox with skila. So you're going to kill all of them with skila. This way, you're sure you're getting it. Which Rabbi Yehuda Omer konsenos on the kippah, and Rabbi Yehuda says, look, you got to get rid of the dangerous ox, but you cannot actively murder and cause the damage. Rather, you're going to allow it to eat barley and have its stomach explode. Okay. Ve'atanya, but we have a brisa. Parashe misa. Let's say about this case. Let's say you have a cow. Right, not a bull, for reasons that will become obvious. Cow she'misa, it kills another person. It kills a person. V'achar kach yalda. Now it gives birth to a calf. Im ad shalo nigmar dina yalda. If it wasn't pronounced liable before it gave birth, so then vlada mutter. Then the offspring, right, is fine. Meaning it gave birth before the gemar din. So a gourd, this is the way we're presuming the case, it killed while it was pregnant, so that means that the fetus inside is part of the cow that killed, but then it's born. Now the pronouncement of misa is made on the cow, not the calf, therefore the calf is accepted. It's invalid. Sorry?
Which make it invalid.
Make what invalid?
The fact that you kill
So the pronouncement on the calf
is invalid.
There's no pronouncement on the calf. There's not one at all, right? Not even invalid. There's no pronouncement on the calf. The cow is im misha nigmar dina yalda. However, if the cow was still pregnant when the pronouncement is declared, vlada aser. Now the offspring is going to be prohibited. Nis arev ba'achirim. Now let's say it gets mixed up with others. This ulcer calf, v'achirim be'achirim, and others get mixed up with others. And now it's even a bigger mixture. Konsin osan lekipa. Now we're going to still bring them all in, and we're going to gather them in, and they're going to. So Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Elazar says, Mevin osan lebeistin v'soklin osan. No, we're going to bring them to Beistin, and we're going to do skila, as we said above, that he holds that Rava's perspective that we're going to do the mitzvah of killing it with skila outweighs the concern of killing an innocent
But
ox.
when you're killing it, right, even if it's pregnant, aren't you killing the baby as well?
So this case we're killing the baby as well. Why? Because the cow gored while it was pregnant, and the pronouncement of Misa was made while the cow was still pregnant, which means every part of the cow is now usher to get benefit from, and is chayiv skila. So therefore, even if the animal is once the cow gives birth later to the calf, the calf must be stoned as well. Okay, so now a lot of conversation to have about this cow and calf. So let's do that. Amar Mar, let us explain in this brisa. Continue on in this back and forth conversation brisa. Im ad shalo nigmar dina. We had said, okay, let's say before the sentence was proclaimed, yolda. The calf is born before the sentence. Vlada mutter. Then the offspring is fine. Okay? V'afa gav dechi nagcha havas mi'abra. Even though when the calf actually killed, when the cow actually killed, the calf was part of the cow. Since it was born before the pronouncement, the calf is fine. Pronouncement seems to be the most important part of it. Okay? Calf is not whether the calf. You can't say the calf is a part of the goring entity, and therefore it should also get a pronouncement. Not so. Calf was born, it's separate. Now, problem is, V'hamar Rava, didn't Rava say, Vlad hanogachas, Aser, he uvlada nagcho. So it says, Vlad hanogachas. Let's say we have the offspring of a cow which has gored, is aser. Okay, the offspring of a cow is aser. He uvlada nagcho. If the cow and the fetus, the child that's inside the calf inside, did the goring, vlad hanirvas, or if you have a cow that's pregnant, who is somebody has bestiality with it, so it's aser. Both become prohibited for use on the mizbeach. He uvlada.
Nirbu.
Right, so how do I read that? 1 second. Vlad henir bas, aser from Mizbeach, he uvladan, right, he uvladan nirbu. Why? Because it and its offspring are considered to be the animals that the Avera was committed with. Because it was part of the animal when the Avera was committed. So now we've got this statement of Rava, which seems to contradict what we said before. Before, it wasn't a matter of whether the animal was whether the calf was part of the cow at the time that it gored. It was only a matter of when the pronouncement was made. This statement of Rava is, it makes a difference if the calf is in the cow when it gores. If the calf is in the cow during the Avera, then the calf is prohibited as well. So therefore, having nothing to do with the pronouncement, having to do with when the Avera occurs. So now, Ema, so let's say, Im ad shelo nigmar dina ibra v'yalda. So we have to change our case. We have to change the case that the Bryce is talking about. What is the circumstance where the child is where the calf is off the hook? Not a circumstance where the cow is pregnant when it's actually goring, because now we've learned that is actually prohibited. Rather, what happens is like this: before the court case comes, ibra v'yolda, the cow gores, then gets pregnant, then gives birth, then the pronouncement from the court, then vlad is mutter. Then the calf is okay. Why? Because now we solve both problems. When the cow gored, there was no calf. When the cow was pronounced guilty, there was no calf. So the calf is fine, right? Im misha nigmar dina, if, however, the cow is pronounced guilty, then ibra, then the cow becomes pregnant. Vlada, v'yalda, and then gives birth, then vlada aser. Then the offspring is prohibited. Why? Because despite the fact that the calf wasn't part of the goring, that's what we're learning is not really relevant. Once the cow is considered to be chayav misa, even if the cow becomes pregnant afterwards, even if the calf is born afterwards, the calf is born from a prohibited cow, and the calf is now prohibited. Okay? So now, that's great, maybe. Hanicha leman damar zev v'zeh gorem aser. I understand. Now, it takes two animals to make a calf. You need a bull, you need a cow. So the bull is innocent, right? The bull didn't commit any crime. So therefore, the cow did commit the crime. The cow was already sentenced to Misa by the time it gets pregnant. So now, this is what we call zev v'zeh gorem. We have two causes for this calf: the bull and the cow. The cow is prohibited. The bull is permitted. So now, according to the opinion that says, if you have something permitted and something prohibited, both combining together to create an entity, the resulting entity is prohibited. Why? Because one of the two sources is prohibited. So then, fine, pay amid beis. El laman damar zev v'zeh gorem mutter. But what do we do according to the opinion that says that if you have two different causes, then whatever comes out is permitted? Because after all, the bull is permitted. So ma'ikal meimer, how are you going to explain this case? That's not going to help you. So rather we've got to have another circumstance where we're going to make this calf permitted versus prohibited. Amar Ravina, so Ravina says, Ema, we have to explain the case like this. Im ad shelo nigmar dina u ibra. Okay, that happens is the cow gores, not pregnant. Okay, then before the court case, the cow becomes pregnant. V'yolda, and it gives birth before the Gemar din. Vlada mutter. Then the offspring is permissible. Because you can't say it's a zev v'zeh gorem circumstance, because the cow is completely permitted under this circumstance. Vim ad shelo nigmar dina ibra. However, if the cow became pregnant before the court case, umisha nigmar dina yolda, but the cow was still pregnant with the calf at the pronouncement of its misa, Vlad da Aser. Now it's a zev v'zeh gorem circumstance, right? Now the offspring, but now it's not a zev v'zeh gorem, because the bull and the cow were both mutter at the time it became pregnant. But then the cow with the fetus is one entity, which then gets set as Aser at the time that the Beis Din says it's chayav misa, and therefore becomes prohibited. Now, 1 second. The calf wasn't present when the cow gored, right? That's not fair. And the bull is mutter, and the cow is mutter. So why should this fetus become prohibited? The answer is because ubar yerech imahu. Because we have a principle which is that a fetus is considered part of the mother. So it's not that the fetus is getting chayav misa like we wanted to see because it was part of the animal and is part of the goring damage. It's not that the animal becomes pregnant and is born after it was already usher and it came from something that was usher. It is that the cow since the cow gored and then becomes pregnant, the cow is now chayav misa. And everything that's a part of the cow is also chayav misa, and therefore, now that it's pregnant, the cow's fetus is also chayav misa.
The Rabbi will be down in 5 minutes. We can continue.
5 minutes? Okay, good. 5 more minutes. Okay. Kol chayav misos. Now we have the next case, which is all circumstances where we're going to mix up people who are chayav misa. Shma mina. Musra ledavar chamar havi musra ledavar kal. Questions like this: how can you wind up mixing up people that have skila and sreifa together and give them the more lenient of the two? Isn't it? How could you get the more lenient of the punishments? Because when you committed an avera that you were chayav sreifa, didn't you get a warning that you were going to get sreifa? And when you committed an avera that you were chayav skila, didn't you get a warning that you were going to get skila? If you didn't get a warning for the misa that you're going to get, how is the warning valid? And if the warning's not valid, how can you get that misa? So the answer must be when you got a warning for whatever the more severe misa is, it counts for any other less severe penalty that you might get as well. Amr Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yirmiyah says, no, not true. He says, Kigon shehosur bostam. What happened here is the witnesses didn't specify which misa they might get. They only warned them and said, if you commit this avera, you're going to get misa. V'haitanahu detanya. This is the opinion that holds the following, and that's not according to everybody. Not everybody agrees with that. That's acceptable. But this Mishnah is going according to the following Tana, who learned in a brisa. Ein mamsin mamisin oson ella be'eda. When we say that when anybody who's chayav misa, other than the circumstance where one is a masis, one is trying to get other people to do avodah zarah, then you can kill that person because he's trying to convince other people to do avodah zarah. But other than that case, the Mishnah this Brisa says you cannot kill anybody unless you have an eda, 23 judges, ve'edim and witnesses, ve'hasra and a warning, ve'ad sheyiduhu shu chayav misas based in, and you have to tell him in the warning you're chayav misas based in. So. And Rabbi Yehuda says, Ad sheyiduhu be'ezem misa hu nerag. You have to tell him which misa. So you see, the Tanna Kama holds you don't have to tell him which misa. You can just tell him plain misa, which means that's how you can have the case where you mix up the misas. Say, guys, these guys got a regular warning. Tanna Kama yolif mi mekoshesh. Tanna Kama is learning from the case of the guy who was gathering wood in the desert. Remember, he was gathering wood. They thought he was chayav misa, so they grabbed him, they threw him in jail. They didn't know which misa to give him. And they didn't know which misa to give him. How did they warn him? So the answer is they must have given him a general warning. You're going to get misa. That's how we know that a general warning is acceptable. For Rabbi Yehuda says, no. Mekoshes horashah. So that was a circumstance that was unique. Nowadays, we have to give a real warning. Back then, they didn't know which misa, so therefore they couldn't give another warning. So therefore, that was the only circumstance where that was allowed. But from now on, we need to actually give the real misa. Haniskol and Minisrafim. We're going to mix up the people who get skila from Sreifa. This is a very nice case. Masni le Rabbi Cheskel l'Rami Brei. Rabbi Cheskel was teaching his son Rami, and he was teaching him this Mishnah, and he read it like this: Hanisrafin b'niskolin. So if you're going to mix up some people who get sreifa together with the people who get skila. Rabbi Shimon says, Yaduna b'skila, we're going to give him skila. Why? Sreifa chamura, because sreifa is the higher one, you're going to give him the lesser one. Amar le Rav Yehuda. So Rav Yehuda, his other son, was sitting there and he said, Abba, Dad, lo titznei hachi. Shouldn't teach it like that. My area desreifa chamura. So because why? Because how do you know that the reason why they're getting sreifa, which is more severe, why is that the reason? Typically, deruba niskolin. You mixing the people up who are supposed to get sreifa in the people who get skila, which means there are more skila people there. And maybe the reason why they're getting skila isn't because that's the more lenient one. It's because it's the majority. It's the rove. You have to be careful to teach it a different way. Ella hachi isnigay. This is how you should teach it. Haniskolin b'nisrafin. Even if you mix up some people who get skila amongst a larger group of people who are getting sreifa, Rabbi Shimon Omer Yaduna b'skila. Rabbi Shimon's still going to hold you're going to give them skila, even though they're the minority. Why? Shas sreifa chamur, because sreifa is the more stringent one, and that's how you learn it, because it's showing you, therefore, that it doesn't matter even that it's more people. It's better. It's that you're going to go with the lenient misa. So ihachi, he says, but wait a second, if that's how you're going to teach it, ema seifa, the end says, v'chacham amram, the chum disagree, and they say, yaduna b'sreifa, you're going to get sreifa, shaskila chamura, so then the skila is more chamer. How do you know if that's why they're going to get it, because the sreifa, you're going to get sreifa because it's the more lenient one? Typically, deruba nisrafin, if you mixed the group of skila people into the sreifa people, maybe you're giving them the sreifa because that's the majority, nisrafin inhu. So he says, hasam, that's not really where you have to worry about it, because Hasam Rabbanan hu dekamru le the Rabbi Shimon. There, the Rabbanan are just answering Rabbi Shimon. When Rabbi Shimon was telling the case, then you have to make a point of the fact that the people who were getting the Chomer Misa were the majority because he was proving his point. When the Chachamim answer Rabbi Shimon back, they're just answering him back. Within your case, you're wrong, and you're still going to give the more lenient one because we hold the lenient as the other one. Ledidachta mart sreifa chamura, and this is what the Chachamim are saying. According to you, that you say sreifa is the more stringent one, low, so skila chamur, but it's not true. Skila is the more stringent one. Is the more stringent one. So therefore, you're going to give him sreifa. Amar le Shmuel Rav Yehuda. To which Shmuel said to Rav Yehuda, Shinana, bright one. He says to Rav Yehuda, he says, you're a smart guy. Pei Aleph Amud Aleph. Lo tema leila avuchachi. You cannot talk to your father that way. That's not how you correct your father. Detanyas, we learn in a brisa. Harishahaya aviv over al divrei Torah. If you see your father is doing an avera, so then lo yomar lo abba avart al divrei al dvar Torah. You shouldn't say, "Hey, Dad, you're doing an avera." Ella omer lo. You should say to him, "Abba kaksiv b'Torah." This is what it says in the Torah, right? Nicer way. So hainuhach. What difference does it make? At the end of the day, you're embarrassing your father, and you're saying you're doing the wrong thing. Ella,
like you're killing him, isn't it?
If you embarrass somebody, it's like you're killing him, but it's not really, right? In other words, you're not giving somebody misa for that. But nevertheless, you want to teach the child how to be respectful. Ella, what you should say is Omer lo Abba mikra kasa b'Torah kach. This is what the Torah says. You don't say this is what you did or what this. Say this is what the Torah says, and then your father can draw his own conclusion. Okay.
Wow, that was something else.
That.